Welcome to Speaking of Talking. Hi, I'm Jenni Steck, voice and speech coach and total voice nerd, here to explore all the ways our voices shape how we connect, lead, and show up in the world. Each week, we'll chat with inspiring leaders, speakers, and experts from all kinds of industries. People who use their voices to move audiences, rally teams, and make an impact. From polished political speeches to spontaneous sideline interviews, we'll break down what works, what doesn't, and why it matters. At Jenni Steck Voice and Speech, we've spent the last decade coaching Fortune 500 executives, broadcasters from CNN, ESPN, CBS News, ABC News, and even prepping Hall of Fame speeches for the NFL and Major League Baseball. And now, I get to bring those conversations and insights straight to you. So if you love talking about talking, you're in the right place. And be sure to subscribe to Speaking of Talking wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. And check the show notes for helpful tips and tools. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get talking. I am so excited to welcome Jeff Pegues to Speaking of Talking. You may know him from his time at ABC New York and then CBS News, where he covered some of the most pivotal stories of our time. In this episode, Jeff shares his journey from the college football field to the newsroom, at the toll of nonstop breaking news, and his battle with a rare voice disorder called spasmodic dysphonia that nearly ended his career. Now, through Jeff Pegues Media, he's reinvented himself with podcasts and documentaries that let him tell stories on his own terms. Let's get talking. I'm so excited to have Jeff Pegues with us today, friend and someone I worked with a while back at CBS. Jeff, I know I'm not going to do justice to everything you've done, but CBS reporter, author, podcaster, you have a media company now, I believe, as well. Could you take a second and just walk us through a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so I was a traditional journalist for 30 plus years. I first went to Miami University of Ohio, where I was a football player and a scholarship football player.
That's impressive.
Well, I like to talk about it, frankly.
Well,
Because
yeah.
it reminds me of the days when I was actually in shape and could run really fast, and I could eat pizza late at night and it wouldn't affect my health like it does now. So I tend to talk about it a lot, and so much that my kids are like, Dad, come on, stop living in the past.
Do your kids play sports?
No, I have two girls. Though one has gotten interested in playing flag football, which is the growing craze with girls and really boys in high school. But beyond that, they don't watch football. I have season tickets to the Ravens. I bought them for my youngest daughter and I to go, but she doesn't like going to the football game. She thinks people are rude, which I kind of agree with. I mean, there are a lot of four-letter words when the team doesn't get a first down or, there's a bad play. And I'm like, yeah, so they're not football players, nor do they really watch the game. They do like the halftime shows, especially when Beyonce is performing or,
of course,
Kendrick Lamar. But beyond that, no, it's my personal passion in our family, in part because of the lessons that playing college football taught me that stick with me to this day. But back to your question, because I can often go on tangents, especially when it comes to football. And Miami University of Ohio, which by you might not know this, is considered the cradle of coaches. Something else I like to talk about, current head coaches in the NFL, John Harbaugh, Sean McVay of the Rams. There are several other dozens of assistant coaches and head coaches throughout history, owners of teams. They all have that Miami of Ohio connection. Of course, I think by now everybody knows that Ben Roethlisberger played there. So it's a great tradition, and that's why I went there and I'm still proud of it. I'm on the board of trustees.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. See, I'm digressing because when people ask me about my career and where it started, well, it really started at Miami of Ohio because I went there to play football. I was pre-med.
Oh, you're kidding.
I should be kidding, but I'm not because
Wow.
it was just, I thought it would look good and it would impress the girls at the time. I was a bit of a juvenile. Okay. In fact, I started playing football after as a kid growing up playing soccer and being on travel teams and then playing overseas where we lived. But when I came back to the US, I wanted to be as American as possible. So at that time, and really still to this day, soccer didn't have cheerleaders. So, see, that was the mind of a juvenile, okay? A juvenile boy, okay? Maybe it's not politically correct to talk about that, but I just want people to know what kind of kid I was. I consider myself a good, polite kid, that the way my parents raised me. But my priorities weren't always where they needed to be. I mean, I was good in school. I was in some advanced math classes. I don't know how I got into those classes because math is still an issue for me. But I was very good at athletics, all state and all those things. So when I went to Miami, my focus was on socializing and playing in the NFL, right? I was like, I'm going to play in the NFL. Even though at the time, and still to this day, I'm 5'6.5". I mean, you've seen me in person. That's probably generous. But in the Miami University program, I was listed at 5'7".
Ooh.
So that's the number I typically go with until I have to take a physical and the doctor brings me back down to earth. And so when I got to Miami, I realized my sophomore year, I realized that first, football hurts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It hurts,
Mm-hmm.
Jenny. It really hurts.
And I don't think you practice with cheerleaders there.
No,
Right?
I mean, somebody should have told me that.
Right?
So it hit me. Okay, so how are you going to take care of yourself when you graduate from this idyllic campus in southwestern Ohio? What are you going to do? You're not going to be a doctor because you really don't want to be a doctor. You're not going to be an economist like my father was. You really don't want to be a lawyer, so what are you going to do? I was walking up on campus one day back to my dorm after a practice, and there was a sign outside the campus TV station. It was a sign for auditions for the campus news station. So I went in, I auditioned to be the sports anchor, and the professor said to me, "Hey, I think you have a future in this business." And that was all it took. Because again, I had no goals outside of cheerleaders and, and playing college football and playing in the NFL or Canada. But when that professor said that to me, I realized, wait a second, I think I can actually do this. But at the time I said, I don't want to do sports because in that period of time, most of the people who were African American that I saw were doing sports. And so I wanted to do news. As I said, I grew up overseas in Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Zaire, Paris, the Philippines. And so I had a world view and I was interested in current affairs. I was the kid who I wouldn't, when the parents had friends over or when the adults were sitting at the table discussing issues, I wasn't the kid who went and played. Well, we didn't really have video games at that time, but we had these handheld games and Mattel games. I forget the name of the football one.
That's what I was going to say. We had the football one.
Yeah,
It was the
I
best.
can't remember the name of it.
It's like a little red blip that would move up.
I wish kids today could see the games, how hard it was for us growing up.
We had it rough.
Yeah, we had it really rough. So I wasn't that guy. I was the guy who would, take a seat near the table with the adults and just listen to what they were talking about. After going through that audition and realizing that, oh, I have a future in this business, I ended up graduating in 4 years, right on time. I ended up getting a job offer from Ferguson plumbing tools or whatever they are. They're based, I think at that time, they were based in Maryland somewhere. And I also got a job offer from a carpet company in Dalton, Georgia. And I was considering it because they had great perks. They were going to give me a Ford Explorer, which to a college kid, I was like, yeah. Dad, and I went to my dad. I said, Dad, they're going to give me a Ford Explorer and they're going to pay me $45,000. I said, I got it. He said, it's great. I mean, this is awesome. And he said, Jeff, you're only going to be at this stage of your life once. And you don't have a mortgage. You don't have kids. Now is the time to chase your dreams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a wise man. Still is to this day. So I went back to Miami I was redshirted, so I had another season of eligibility, played that season, had actually graduated on the dean's list, so I improved my grades tremendously. And as a result, I could take, I think I took ice skating my last semester and maybe some basket weaving class that people accuse football players of taking. But I took it easy and I had a lot of fun and I had a good season. And at the end of the season, I was at one of the hotels in the town and there were, alumni there and, some of the big wigs. And, I started talking with a man that I was introduced to and he said, hey, Jeff, what are you going to do after you leave? And I said, well, I'm thinking about getting into broadcast news. And he slipped me his card. It turns out he was like CEO of 13 stations.
Well, that was a lucky encounter.
A lucky encounter, or is luck when preparation meets opportunity? And so that's what I tell young people today. I give them the same message my dad gave me. Follow your dreams. Because if you don't, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And so after that, I interviewed at one of this guy's bigger stations. They didn't think I was ready, so they sent my tape to one of the smaller stations in Rockford, Illinois. I drove out there. I essentially begged for the job, and I told the woman who was news director, Arliss Hendershot is her name. Shout out to Arliss because she believed in me. She gave me an opportunity. And I was begging her for that opportunity. I said, I'm going to be the best hire you ever make. So she hired me and I was there for 7 months. And I went to Dayton, Ohio for a year. Then I went to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for 2 years. And then I got this national hosting job based out of Minneapolis for the UPN network where they were selling the show as the young Regis and Kathy Lee, and I was supposed to be Regis, and they said it was going to be a news magazine, but it actually turned into something else that I wasn't really comfortable with. And then I left there and went to Miami for 3 years as an anchor and a reporter. Then I went to Baltimore, Maryland as an anchor reporter for 3 years, and then jumped to WABC in New York, where I was a substitute anchor and reporter. And then in 2013, when I had sort of convinced myself that I would be spending the rest of my career at WABC TV, CBS, I didn't go to them. I wasn't expecting to leave WABC. They came to me, and I was hired by two people there at the time, the president and the vice president of the news division. And so I was at CBS for almost 11 years through one of the most turbulent times
Really?
in history.
Really?
Oh, I could get into that, but that could take hours, maybe days.
So along the way, you began covering the beat of justice and crime and wrote a couple of books about these things. How did you come into that? Was that something you covered at ABC, or was it something you were passionate about, or how did that happen?
Well, that's a very good question. I was one of the top story reporters at WABC in New York, where I'd lead the newscast covering the latest shooting or a storm or just about anything, general assignment. But leading the newscast or close to the top of the newscast, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. So I had experience covering a wide range of stories, but I think I was known for covering crime. When I got to CBS, I was a general assignment reporter. Then they made me transportation correspondent, and 3 planes fell out of the sky. And,
Oh, my
and
God.
then a year after that, and this is all within a 3-year span, really a 2-year span, because I was promoted the first time 2 months after I got there. Then I was promoted the second time about a year after I got there. So it was very busy. And when I got the justice beat, I think they knew my background, and Bob Orr, who I consider a friend and mentor, he had decided to retire. So they had this void that needed to be filled. And, it happened as Michael Brown and Ferguson was unfolding, then Freddie Gray, and then on and on and on. So I look at the time period as being in the right place at the right time for the right kinds of stories for me. And I say that because my parents are both from Alabama. They grew up from the 40s to the early 60s in Birmingham for my father, and then Montgomery for my mother. My grandmother's second cousin was Rosa Parks.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's a lot of rich history
Yeah.
and some of the injustices that were happening at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up hearing those stories.
Yeah.
I grew up living those stories in some ways. And so I was always interested in the relationship between police and the community. And so at that time, to be the justice correspondent for CBS News, which I was the first African-American justice correspondent for CBS News, I felt a big responsibility to do it right, to succeed, and to cover the beat in the right way and present all sides. And so I thought at the time I was uniquely suited to cover that beat. And I think if you look at my track record during that period, I think I sort of established myself as, one of the top, certainly in the country, when it comes to covering those kinds of stories.
What was the impetus for the Black and Blue book?
That's an easy question to ask, and it's a good question. As you know, oftentimes, most of the time when you're on the evening news or a morning show, you only have roughly a minute 30 on tape and maybe another 30 combined, introducing the tape and coming out of the tape and talking to the anchor. And because I covered the beat, I had a lot of good sources, federal sources, local law enforcement sources that I've met in all my travels in all these different cities that I lived in. I had a lot of information, and a lot of it wasn't getting on the air. So I just decided, you know what, let me write a book because this is important. Every day there was another story about some confrontation between police and somebody in the community. And I was the kind of network correspondent reporter. And I think this is important when we start talking about health and other things. I would internalize things because it was important to me. And I thought the work that we were doing as a network was important for history and important for the country. I just couldn't, and frankly, there was never really a 9 to 5 in my job. It was a 24/7 job.
Right.
Covering that beat because, in addition to, police involved incidents like Ferguson, Baltimore, it was also during 2016 and Russia interference and Trump this, Trump that. It was just so much. And you just couldn't put your phone down because you were constantly getting pinged for information. Can you make this call? Can you go here? Can you do this? But I felt because of my background and because of the nature of the work that I was uniquely positioned to tell this story and tell all sides of the story. And I say that, and I think you'll see that in my first book, Black and Blue. I had a lot of police officers, detectives who were friends. And frankly, I respect the profession because the people who go into that line of work, 99.9% of them, they aren't going in there to make money.
For sure. That's not the cost.
Right?
Yeah.
Or to rip people off.
Yeah.
Right. It's about public service. And I look at journalism as public service, as a public service too. Generally speaking, you can make a lot of money, but it's a public service. And it's so important to this democracy. And so I took my job, and I still do, even with what I'm doing now, as it's a public service. People deserve to know the truth. And so I just, as I said, it was just a really busy time during that period for me. I guess that was the last 7 years at CBS, just so much happening, 7 or 8 years, so much happening on my beat. And I knew it was all important.
How do you, now is a different story, but maybe not. How do you manage your health in that kind of situation? With relentless, difficult news, difficult stories to cover, complex stories. And what I see is journalists are being asked to do more and more while the resources to support them are, get less and less. I always wonder, how do you go home at the end of the day and play with your kids and let some of that stuff go, especially when you are, like you said, 24/7, you might get pinged with some kind of breaking news, some kind of important lead you need to go follow. How do you shut it out? How do you just relax?
That's another really good question, because during my time at CBS, roughly 10, 11 years, I didn't know how to do that. I viewed it as my job of a lifetime. I looked up to Scott Pelley, Leslie Stoll, Ed Bradley, Bob Orr, Chip Reed, Wyatt Andrews, Bob Schieffer. They're legends. I would walk around the halls and interact with a lot of the people I mentioned, and they set the bar really high. And what bothers me now, looking back, is at this moment in history, I don't think they get the credit they deserve. They don't get that credit, but, that's for a different discussion. But I was always trying to live up to that standard. And I wanted to be available and in on, every story I could possibly be in on. And I think it's fair to say, for the entirety of my time there, I tried to give it everything I could. And it took me away from my kids. I think it contributed to my divorce. I missed out on my daughter's senior prom because I was making a speech somewhere. I missed little moments. And toward, when my health started, I don't want to say failing, but I started having health challenges that I'd never had before in my life. I started to realize that what you should always keep in mind is who loves you the most, who cares about your well-being the most. And sometimes when you're in a job like that, you get consumed with ambition and making more money and becoming a bigger name and getting the big story and being on TV a lot. And so toward the end, it was becoming clear to me, especially as I started to lose my voice and the tasks that were easy for me in the past, like reading a script, took 10, 20 minutes for a short script because I just didn't like hearing my voice, and my voice was strained, and it was sort of this painful thing. And I hadn't told anybody all this, I think. Some of the editors, some of my producers, I mean, they knew, because sometimes there would be a deadline and we were coming up on the deadline and I had to redo the tracks 5, 6, 7 times. And every single time it was killing me because I knew that, I don't know if it's in my head or if it's what's wrong with my voice. It was just a very painful experience, and it was a sense of feeling lost. So I went to Dr. Simon Best at Johns Hopkins, and he diagnosed me with something called adductor spasmodic dysphonia, which is an incurable at this time voice disorder where the muscles in your vocal cords tense up, they tighten up, and your voice sounds strained or choppy. So like everything, I thought, okay, I can beat this. I can get over this. And, I thought it was in my head to some degree. Because when it started, I wasn't feeling valued. I was tired, worn out, feeling a lot of pressure. And, I think that's why it all started. My marriage was falling apart. Yeah, I think that's why it all started, because they don't know how, I should say, they don't know why something triggers it. And, I've talked to people over the years. I called an auto dealership once a few years ago, which, my girlfriend will tell you I spend a lot of time, unfortunately, calling auto dealerships, which I'm trying to break that habit too.
For what reason?
Because I love cars. And in her words, I'm an idiot.
Oh.
So she means that lovingly, of course. But yeah, it's another habit I'm trying to break. A little insight into my head. But yeah, I called his dealership once, and the guy on the other end, he answered the phone, and I could hear some sort of spasmodic dystonia or dysphonia in his voice. And toward the end of the call, I said, "Do you have spasmodic dysphonia?" And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, it's this vocal cord disorder." And he said, "I've never heard of it." And I said, "You might want to get your voice checked out." I didn't end up buying a car from him, but he said, "Thank you." I think there are a lot of people running around who don't know what ails them when it comes to their voice. And I did ask the guy, "Hey, have you been under a lot of stress?" He said, "Well, funny you should ask. Yeah." So it's one of those disorders that a lot of people don't know about. And as I was doing my job on TV, I would have people with SD reaching out to me, which I appreciated. because at the time I was searching for answers and I needed some clarity. Because the other thing is I'm not the guy who I'm sort of the old fashioned dude in that, oh, I don't need to go to the doctor. I'm fine.
It'll pass.
It'll pass. I don't know what it is with men, especially, but it's just, and I'm still that way to a certain degree, not when it comes to my voice, but other things. I sort of put it off. And again, that's something that frustrates my girlfriend. You know, the women in my life make a lot of doctor's appointments. I just don't know how they do it. It's like a full-time job.
It's true.
You know, oh, my pinky hurts. I'm going to go to the doctor. What? But they're a lot healthier than I am. So there's something to that. Do you make a lot of doctor's appointments?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I go all
I'm
the
not
time.
talking just for the kids, but for you.
For me, yes.
Yeah, see, guys are like...
I get my blood work every 6 months.
Okay.
All of that. Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Yes.
Yeah. I need to do better, and I encourage everybody listening to this to do better. Don't follow my example. So it's just one of the many things that I'm working on in my life to be better and healthier.
Well, I have a question about that. With the spasmodic dysphonia, as you know, I'm a voice therapist, speech language pathologist with a specialty in voice. One of the things about putting off getting that diagnosis I have found is that what can happen is you're trying to control it. So you actually start to introduce some compensatory strategies and habits that can sometimes be worse than the spasmodic dysphonia in the long run, because you're introducing so much tension just to try to control it. Do you have a sense of how far along you were, how long it had been bothering you before you actually got that diagnosis? Like, when did you first start to notice?
Around 2017.
What was the first thing that drew your attention to it?
Interestingly enough, it was an executive at CBS, who said that she heard something in my voice that concerned her. And I talked to another executive at CBS who said, there's nothing wrong with your voice. So, you know, part of me looks back and wonders, did that get into my head where I started thinking there was something wrong with my voice? I mean, you never know, because you just never know. You never know if that person at CBS who said that really heard something or thought they heard something. So part of it is, I wonder if, and you're the expert, but I think there is evidence that some of it is in the head. Personally, I think that's accurate, because since I left CBS, I don't have the same tension in my voice. I'm still working on my voice and feeling more comfortable. But I think if you hadn't heard me speak ever before, like, a lot of people noticed it because they'd watched me on TV for 20 years.
Right. They knew your voice.
They knew my voice, and they would say, well, your voice has changed. It's so weird. What's happening in Jeff? Is he dying? Does he have cancer? No, all sorts of stuff. Did he die? All sorts of stuff.
Oh my God.
And, you know, I also had the haters on social media. Your voice sucks. You get off TV. Yeah, social media is great for haters. But I tried not to pay attention to those haters, but it was hard. And so post CBS career, I mean, look at this is my home studio. It's a great life. You know, of course, there are some ups and downs. I get to spend more time with the people I love, do more things that I love, and I've sort of reordered and continue to rearrange my priorities. And I think that's helping.
Do you think that you were holding tension in the body, not necessarily in this area, but just the tension from being on 24/7, being on call, being stressed, covering all of these difficult stories, And now you can do more things to take care of your whole self, to do more physical activity, to get back in touch with the body as a whole.
Yeah, I think I was really unhappy and I didn't know how to express it and get it out of my body. And that to me is the other important point of this interview that we're doing, is that sometimes when you're, for example, in a bad relationship or in a job that you're not happy in anymore, you can have a physical reaction to what you're feeling on the inside. And I didn't really know that until that period. And I would ask some people. There was a spot photographer I worked with, great guy, fun to work with, fun to hang out with. We were talking about what I was going through. And he said, during my divorce, when I would go home and get close to home, I'd start getting this twitch in my ear.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, and it sort of reinforced the stress I was feeling when I would be in certain places, because I just wasn't comfortable there.
The symptoms were worse?
Yeah, I mean, I could feel deep down, I really don't want to be here, but I gotta go.
It seems so frustrating that the way that manifested is in your voice, which is how you make your living. And you'd relied on it for 20, 30 years as your identity. When that starts to be unreliable in the midst of all of this other stress, I cannot imagine how you deal with that. I mean, did you have, were the ENTs helpful? How did you deal with that?
You know, the doctor, Dr. Best at Johns Hopkins, he was doing everything that he could do for me.
One of the treatments, in case people don't know, is Botox injections into the vocal folds to kind of handle the spasming. Is that something you tried? Okay, and if you don't want to talk about it, that's okay. Like the things.
No, I'll talk about it because I hope it helps other people. But I tried something called Xyrem, which is medication that you take.
It's an oral medication?
Yes. But that didn't seem to work. And I wanted the Botox to be the second to last resort. So I did Botox. Typically, I do it every 4 to 6 months. And I have a video somewhere if your listeners want to see it.
Yeah.
It's pretty gross.
Of the injection itself?
Yeah, because they put a little camera through your nose and then they inject you and the camera shows it. It shows the Botox going into your vocal cords. It's fascinating, but it's kind of gross if you're not, ready for that kind of thing. They numb the area. You have local anesthesia and that helps, but it's uncomfortable. And it's not this kind of thing that, you're excited to go back and do, but you have to do it. I had to do it for my career. I think the last Botox shot I got this year was in January. I was scheduled to get one, I think, in April, but I put it off. I'm still putting it off because I think I sound okay.
Yeah.
And
I
think I sound okay.
And maybe you can talk us through this too, but there is a period, unless it's changed since last time I was working with this, there's a period right after where you're very breathy and then the voice gets stronger and then Botox wears off and you start to have some of the problems again, some of the spasms come back. So it's not like it fixes it for the full
permanently.
Time. Yeah.
No.
Did you experience that as well?
Oh, yeah. And the bigger the dose they give you, and they try to find the right dose. And it takes some testing every time you go. The doctor will ask, how did it feel? How long were you breathy sounding? And if it's less than a month, they try to increase the dosage. Or if it's a couple of days, because the first time I did it, it wore off essentially after a week. And I was like, oh, I feel great. But it didn't last as long. And, having that breathy thing was always a problem with network television. I would keep putting it off and it just wouldn't work as long as I needed it to work or something. And I did go out to LA. There's a specialist out there who pioneered this surgery where they basically replace your vocal cords. And his name escapes me right now, but, I met with him. He said that I'm a candidate for the surgery. He said, it's 87% effective. And I was leaning toward getting the surgery. And then I just decided to wait before I did that. And that was about the time that CBS and I parted ways. So at that point, I didn't feel much of an impetus to get that surgery just because you just never know what's going to happen with the surgery. And I also felt like, well, let me try this change in environment and see if that helps.
And it did.
And it has.
Wow.
It has. My voice is different than it was 20 years ago. But a lot of people's voices are different than they were 20 years ago.
For sure.
I just remembered something that has also been important. I keep talking about my partner, my girlfriend, and she's a big Dateline watcher. And to my chagrin, I watch sports and movies like Monkey Man, which is a good movie. She thinks it's ridiculous, but it's a good movie. Sounds ridiculous, but it's a good movie.
My husband wants to see that, and I have been putting it off.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, guys. So funny. Monkey Man, yes. So she watches Dateline, and she loves Keith Morrison.
Yes.
And his voice. Why did she kill? I sound just like him. And so she would tell me, Jeff, you have a distinctive voice like Keith Morrison. I said, what? I don't talk like this. In a quiet neighborhood in Dallas, Texas. You wouldn't believe what happened. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
I've never tried him before. Yeah. So she said, you have a distinctive voice. Work with that. She's so much smarter than me.
Side note, he did a bedtime story for the Calm app. That is not the voice I want to have in my ear before I go to sleep.
Because you're thinking, murder.
Yes. Yeah. It's great if you haven't heard it.
Listen, some people find his voice very soothing and reassuring.
It's the context. I can't shake the murder.
No, I don't blame you. But my girlfriend, she's a Keith Morrison fangirl.
Well, that's an interesting point, though. So she's saying, hey, do something with this really distinctive sound. And now I believe you have two podcasts. I'd already been listening to the one, Critical Dispatch.
Yeah.
And now you have another show that's launching. Is that right?
That's the thing that I love about this period of my life and this period in this world, especially when it comes to broadcasting. You can wear many different hats. And that's one of the things that frustrated me about my previous life is that I was sort of put in this box of this justice and homeland security guy. But the person you're seeing now, it's a real me. That I would tell executives, I lived overseas for the first 13 years of my life. I played major college football. I lived all over this country and the world. I'm interested in more than just justice and homeland security. I can talk about anything. And so Jeff Pegues Media and all these different shows, I have Critical Dispatch, I have Person of Interest, which is on all the major platforms, Hulu, Fire TV, Apple TV. I'm starting a true crime show. Initially, it'll be a podcast, True Crime, Jeff Pegues Investigates. I interview interesting people. On Person of Interest, I'm interviewing a former teammate of mine who has this incredible story that made national news. He's currently a coach of the Los Angeles Raiders, running backs coach Dylan McCullough. So I have a connection to his incredible story, which it's just amazing and heartwarming. And so I'm just able to talk to really whoever I want. And that's why I wanted to get into journalism. I just love, and I think anybody who has a podcast that is not a political podcast, they get into this business. For some people, a business. For some, it's a business. For some people, it's just a hobby. But they enjoy having conversations. They enjoy learning about other people. And at its core, that's what journalism should be. And that's why I got into journalism, is to learn about new issues, investigate them, hold people accountable. I saw it as helping the little guy, working on behalf of the public. Yeah, I worked for some big, major companies, but my mindset was I represent the people. And I don't care where you're from, blue or red, purple, whatever. I represent the truth. I represent the people. And so now I can do whatever I want. I can talk to, people who lost a kid and the police aren't helping them. And I can talk to celebrities, interesting people doing interesting things. And yeah, most of the time my voice is good. Like, you can tell I'm enjoying this conversation because there's no tension in my voice.
Yeah.
And you're a good interviewer because you're making me feel comfortable. And then we've known each other for a long time too. So this is the state that I'm in most of the times. I actually wake up these days and I'm excited to turn on my computer and start recording something. Or somebody told me probably about 15 years ago, it's the process, not the proceeds. So if you focus on the work that you're doing, enjoy that work, the money will come. It'll come. Just be good at what you do. That's true of anything you do. If you're a baseball player or a football player, don't do it for the money. Do it for the love of the game, if that's really what you want to do. And frankly, on a personal note, I think I forgot about that toward the end of my network career, is why I got into the money. I talked at the outset about that job in Dalton, Georgia, that was going to pay me $45,000 and give me a Ford Explorer. I didn't take that job. I took the job reporting in Rockford, Illinois for $11,700. Not a month, not a week, a year.
Oh my God.
College graduate.
As you said,
Dean's list.
public service.
Public service.
You're not in it for the money.
No. And it was a way to get onto the field. I had mentors who said, just get in the business. And, there are a lot of young journalists, aspiring journalists who want to do what I did. Take the first step. Might not be in the city might not be the perfect job, but take it. Get in the business, work hard, think about the process and why you want to do what you want to do. It's not about just being on TV. Are you a good writer? How do you perform in live situations? It's the process, not the proceeds.
Do you have a go-to resource for you now that is where you get your news?
No, I don't rely on any one source. I'll watch some network television news. I'll wake up and turn on MSNBC, CNN, and flip back and forth to see what they're covering. That's the old network journalist in me, just seeing what's going on in the world when I wake up. I don't watch it for too long because that'll make my voice stress out.
That's right.
There's way too much going on. So I'll sample that. I'll look at the Washington Post and the New York Times. I've started just recently watching Bloomberg and reading Bloomberg, which I like some of the shows that they have that feature. There was one that featured the commissioner who's running the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League, which I'm a big fan of because I have a 15-year-old who plays soccer, and we have season front row tickets to the Washington Spirit, Trinity Rodman, and it's a great league. It's fun. And so Bloomberg got me with that story. When I saw that story, I watched it. And then they had a story about Formula One, which I'm interested in. So I tend to look at stories that go beyond the headlines. And that's kind of what I want to do with Jeff Pegues Media, is those stories a little bit more in depth, right? In depth. And now I'm getting a chance to do what I love and create and decide what I think is news.
Are you considering doing long form videos, stories? Is that part of what's coming from you?
Yeah, I have a series that I'm working on that is closer to a documentary that is called Gangland America. It sort of taps into the reputation I built as someone who likes to be in the middle of the action. You know, January 6th, I was on the West Front lawn.
Oh, I remember seeing you on my TV and thinking, oh my God, please be safe. Please be safe.
Yeah, that was something. But there's several other big stories where I've been there. I'm not an anchor tossing to a reporter who's there and then saying that I'm the anchor who covered this story. No, I was the correspondent in the middle of it after George Floyd's death and the chaos in Minneapolis. I was there, and I have incredible pictures. I liked to take pictures with my own phone of stuff going down. And that's another project that I'm working on, is a picture book of some of the major incidents of the last 20 or so years, because a lot of the images that I caught being at the scene first, other people don't have. So yeah, I'm working on this Gangland America series with people who work in law enforcement who've been, right in the middle of this issue. Obviously, in the last 6 months, there's a lot of talk about Venezuelan gangs, and so I'd like to sort of document what's going on in cities across America and the reality. So I am trying to do more long form work, and there will be a time, perhaps in the near future, where if there's a breaking story, I'll launch with a crew and I'll cover it for Jeff Pegues Media and put it out. There's a lot of freedom in what I'm doing, and I love it.
Fantastic. Jeff, thank you so much for spending time with me. Is there any other last thought you want to share?
No, I think we covered a lot. I enjoyed this.
I have a question for you, maybe as a last thought. Knowing the kind of stresses that reporters face, anchors face, there's so much paring down of support in the stations, the local stations, as well as in the network. As a coach, are there things that you would recommend people we could do to help support the talent?
I think as a coach, all you can really do is, I don't know, Jenny, I think it's a tough question because, these guys are overworked. Some correspondents love it and thrive. But I can almost guarantee that after 5-6 years of doing that, it could kill you. I think the demands put on reporters, especially who are out in the field traveling to different stories, it's a lot. And it's unlike anything we've ever seen. And then these companies are paying less and less money and spreading you out over 15 different platforms or products.
And sometimes without a crew now, right?
Without a crew, they're not going to compensate you for it. They're going to...
You're shooting it, editing it yourself.
Yeah, and expect to get it all right, too. And if you don't, then it's your fault, right? It's a lot. And when you think about the way it used to be when Bob Schieffer or Scott Pelley were coming up, especially at the network, they had one show that they would work for, typically be divided up between the morning show and the evening news. And when I got to CPS shortly after, and I was told when I was hired, oh yeah, our correspondents don't get on TV a lot. And like a month later, they launched streaming, and streaming changed everything. And pretty soon I was on TV on every show, including radio. You know, so you were all over the place, and it was nonstop. So I don't know if as a coach you can help with that dynamic. It has to come from management. If you want your best from people, you got to give them a break, because frankly, I know a lot of managers who were fantastic, always responsive, always plugged in. But there were managers who, after their show was done, you couldn't find them. Meanwhile, the correspondent is going 24 hours a day, and they're asking for more. It was just incredible to me. After their show ended, you couldn't get them on the phone, but they had no problem calling me on my weekends. So that was the kind of stuff that sort of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
They had no problem destroying my time with my family, right?
Yep.
And it wasn't just me. I would stand up for others who I felt were in that same situation, and I would counsel others who came in after me to really protect yourself and take care of yourself. And there were managers there at a high level who warned me of the same thing, said, you know, Jeff, there are times when you have to say no. And I found it hard to say no.
Sure.
So as a coach, it's been, 6 years since we worked
I
together?
think that's right.
You know, so I don't know what your curriculum is these days, but, you know, I think you could, I guess, and you probably do, just counsel people to, you know what, take care of yourself. I think that alone, and telling them that, yeah, I know you guys are under a lot of pressure, and I know you don't get a lot of breaks, but just take care of yourself.
Well, it is, again, a pleasure to get to talk to you and reconnect. And thank you so much for sharing your story and being vulnerable. And I know that there are people out there who need to hear it, who feel like they're really alone and scared and don't know how to move forward. So I know that your words are going to help.
Yeah, I hope so. And thank you for giving me the time to, I guess, get a lot of things on my chest. Wow. It's like therapy, Jenny.
This freed Jeff Pegues is
my gosh.
wonderful. I can't wait to hear more. I can't wait to see your shows.
Well,
Best
thank
of
you.
luck. As always, let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
Oh, I will. Know where to find you. All right, buddy. Take care.
Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining me on Speaking of Talking. If you loved this episode, I'd be so grateful if you'd leave a review, share it with a friend, or send it to someone who geeks out on voice just as much as we do. For more tips, tools, and behind-the-scenes goodies, head to the show notes or visit us at jennisteck.com. I'm Jenni Steck. And remember, your voice isn't just how you sound, it's how you show up. Own it, trust it. And let's keep talking, because we've got a lot to say.